I want to start with is try to indicate where we're going with this design program and what it's really going to take to knock this Darwinian idol over. And I think what I want to start with is just to say, I think what Darwinists have done is really hidden behind the complexities of living systems. Living systems are so complex that Darwinists do not really have a clue how these things could have formed by a gradual, detailed, step-by-step Darwinian pathway. So in a sense, what they do is they gesture at various intermediate systems that might have existed and then basically say, prove me wrong. Show me that it didn't happen that way. And so they put the burden of evidence on the design people when in fact the burden of evidence should be on them, because these systems by any standards look like design systems. And so if they look designed, maybe indeed they are designed. Now, how can you challenge that though? Because we are now in the minority. It's the Darwinists who hold the positions of power and influence and prestige in the academic setting. So how do you overturn that way of looking at things? Well, as I said, I think they're hiding behind the complexities. In William Paley's day, the eye, the mammalian eye, was as good an example of design as you could find, and he made a design argument based on the eye. Along comes Darwin, along come his successors, and they say, look, there are all these different eyeballs out there in organisms. Slap them down on a table, draw arrows between them, those which are less complex to more complex. It evolved. End of story. That's it. And you see this actually. There's a book that was derived from the PBS Evolution series that came out in 2001. Carl Zimmer, The Triumph of Evolution. That triumph is not going to be around too much longer. But if you look at the cover, there are all these different eyeballs there. And the implication is, obviously, the eye evolved. Now, the eye is so complex. I mean, multicellular, layers and layers of complexity. How are you going to get a handle on that evolutionarily? So what do we do as design theorists? Well, let's look at simpler systems that are still sufficiently complex so we can get a better handle on that. Now, where Behe took the analysis was to the subcellular level, looking at these irreducibly complex molecular machines, these complexes of cells. Now, what's happened with Behe? I mean, the biological community is not convinced by Behe's argument. What do? Well, the Darwinian mechanism, it's a divide and conquer strategy. You take a system. If you can find a subsystem of that system which performs some function, hey, you've divided the problem. Clearly it evolved, the more complex global system evolved from that system which is embedded in it. End of story. No need to do any engineering work or any design work or anything. That's enough. It's enough to point to these intermediate systems, but not give any detailed, testable, step-by-step scenario for how point A could have evolved by gradual means into point B. Nevertheless, that is enough to convince them because, from their perspective, design is a non-starter, it's unthinkable, so this is the only way it could have happened. Now, there are ways of approaching these systems and getting a handle on them. And I'll speak a little bit about the probabilities involved. Mike actually spoke to that with this problem of interface compatibility with multi-protein complexes. But where I think it's really going to come down to is not where we're going to see the Darwinian idol topple is not even at the level of these irreducibly complex molecular machines. I mean, you look at the bacterial flagellum, you've got 20,000 protein subunits just in the filament. I mean, these are still pretty massive things, massively complex systems. And again, I think the Darwinist hides behind the complexity. Where I see it going, and I'm privy to some of this research, and I've been advertising it discreetly in some of my writings. Darwinists, I think, are not believing me at this point, but just to give you a sense of where it's going, and I think what it's really going to take to bring Darwinian idol down, is the analysis is going to go not just at the level of these protein complexes, but to individual proteins, into individual enzymes, and then some metabolic pathways of these enzymes, but even at the level of individual enzymes,